Hey, I'm Double J with Black Rabbit Service, and today we are going to talk about changing your group head gaskets on your La Marzocco Linea Mini. There are a couple different types of gaskets that we like to use at Black Rabbit here. One is the silicone gasket, and one are the traditional rubber gasket. We tend to lean towards the flat gasket as opposed to the bevel gasket. Both are great. Both, in my opinion, last about the same amount of time as far as replacement goes. They sort of fail in different ways. In a professional cafe, we usually recommend quarterly replacement of your gaskets. For home use, it's probably closer to 6 months. But the biggest indicator that you need to change your gaskets is when you start to see drips coming from the outside of your portafilter. You don't want those drips getting into your shots, so let's just change the gasket. It's easy enough. First, you're just going to remove your portafilter, get that guy out of the way. You only need two tools to do this: a flathead screwdriver to remove your screen, and then an awl or a pick to pull the gasket out. Very simple. So we'll remove the screen first. Careful, it can be a little hot up there because I didn't turn the machine off to cool it down. Sometimes that's nice to do. So out come your dispersion screw and screen. The screens these days are a lot better built. Typically in a what we'd call PM, we'd say quarterly PMs. You'd want to replace your screen every 3 months. They're a lot better now, so we find 6 months is probably good enough for these things. So again, for home use, you probably get a year out of it. You just want to make sure you check it. There's not a lot of scratches or dents, definitely no punctures, anything like that. If it's clogged on the back and you're having a hard time cleaning it, throw a new one in there. Next thing is we're going to pry the old group head gasket out. So that lives just on the outside edge of your bayonet ring here where the portafilter goes into the machine. Again, the machine's hot. If you cool it down, it's a little easier. So if you put your finger in there, you can sort of feel there's like some notches where you can kind of get your awl or your pick in there to sort of help scoop out the gasket. You can kind of locate one of those. If you're not having a hard time finding that, you can actually just go ahead and stab the gasket, and we're throwing it away anyway, so you can just stab it, pry it out of there. I was able to get a good grab on it with my awl, and it peeled out nicely. This one's not too bad. Sometimes if they've been in there for a really long time, they'll be really old, and you kind of have to like chisel them out of there. So make sure you change this pretty regularly. So this one's gonna come out in one piece, and there's a little shim in there too. So you want like a little more tightness on your portafilter. You can add paper shim, and that will help you find that like kind of perfect tightness in the group head. I know that this is a 6mm gasket, so I'm going to replace it with the same thing because it was feeling good. So you would take your black rubber gasket. There's a slight bevel on the outside edge of this gasket. That side's going to go up into the machine, and if you want that shim, you just put that right on top, and then you sort of walk it in with your fingers and reseat with the portafilter. That's how you would do the flat one. If you're going to go with the silicone gasket, these have a bevel on it, and so this is where it gets a little confusing. That bevel needs to face down rather than up into the machine. You can also use a paper shim with this gasket. We're just going to go ahead and throw this in here without a shim and see what happens. So again, it's a little hot, and you kind of just seat it with your fingers, and then you can really set it in with your portafilter. When I put in a new gasket, I like to give it just a little extra push to make sure it's seated in there really nicely. One thing you don't want to forget to do is put your screen back in. I like to do this just finger tight. I don't like to use a screwdriver to put the screen back in if I don't have to. The only thing you're checking for is that the screen sits snugly on the dispersion block and doesn't spin freely. And that's changing a gasket. Hey, what's up? It's me, Double J. I'm gonna be late.